connect with other people. So about 3 years ago when we had the conference in Cape Town, we opened, we had President Mike from the UK conference, but they were opening their midterm convention at the same time. So he actually opened their event from our stage in Cape Town, which was great. We also had an event the day before. Our pre-con was a marketing event, and Alan Stevens was our MC. We had 5 speakers who are great with marketing content. Come and deliver content. So if anybody wants to buy me a drink tonight, it'll be great. But we do need to experiment with this. Part of what we need to do as speakers, and this is a little bit of a safe environment, that we can experiment with 1 or 2 things in this room, to know that if a client wants to do something virtually, that we actually have a bit of experience. So that's why we've explored that, especially with our online meetings. We've had a couple of conversations with Alan and with Ian, talking about how to do virtual presentations.
Charlotte?
Yes.
There's a message here from Mike Ogilvy. Why are you not connecting with PSA London? We've set a precedent, we should return to it, have a good conference, and hope to get out there soon. Mike.
I know.
And then he carries on, he says, we're interviewing Kerry Brock tomorrow, and we have Frank Furness speaking. You can link in if you wish.
Wow. Okay, so we can do that. We actually should tie up a little bit more with him. That's quite a good idea.
There's lots of messages here. There's one adult.
There's a lot. Okay. All right, now I know why Ian was late. I just want to make a comment about the air conditioners. Everybody...
I hear you, but my camera's muted.
Okay, cool. Well, we can hear you. That's perfect.
Everybody has different suggestions about the air conditioners. I'm just going to ask if they get turned on again for a little bit longer, because the room's really hot. I know that I do carry my own personal weather system, but we're up front for the moment, so we'll sort that out later. Richard, did you want to add something?
I just referring back to the time when we 2 years ago when we had all those people from around the world pitching in to the convention that we had 2 years ago. We were trying to link it all together, and it was such a battle. And Alan Stevens and I were working technically on this, but it was all on the table. And both Alan Stevens and I were kneeling down, trying to work on our computers side by side on the table. And we both had our hands together like this, kneeling down. Now, if there are 2 more people who shouldn't be kneeling down with their hands together, it's Alan Stevens and myself. So just a little background to what we got it working in the end, which is exactly what's going to happen any minute now.
All right, well, good. I think we're ready to go. Can Michelle hear us?
I hear you perfectly. My camera is mute, but I can see some folk and I can hear you. Hi.
That's fine. Thank you very much. All right, Tom hasn't joined us. He has a technical problem every now and then, so we're just going to go with Michelle and Ian. So let's start officially. I'd like to welcome Ian Hatton here from South Africa. He's a Cape Town chapter member, and he's also on the Cape Town chapter board. And Michelle Clarke, who used to be in Cape Town, this isn't a Cape Town event, that's just a coincidence. But Michelle is a coach, a personal coach, and she has moved. She told us it was just going to be for 3 months, but she hasn't come back yet. So she's in Chile, in Santiago, having a fantastic time. And Michelle does a lot of work virtually. So we're going to have a conversation around that. Michelle, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, explain a little bit about the work that you do, and then Ian can do the same.
Sure. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm glad you can see my picture and not me, because it's 6:30 in the morning here in Santiago in Chile, and I look like a person who has just woken up. So great to see you all. Hi. I'm South African. I came to Santiago in 2014, and I've stayed for 4 years. I'm a leadership and branding coach, and I wasn't clear that I was going to stay here for 4 years, but I started quite a big marketing drive some 4 years ago and positioned myself as a virtual coach. So the majority of my clients are still in South Africa, I'm very grateful to say, but I'm now working virtually with clients in Australia and the USA and here in Latin America.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Tom, hi, are you there? Can you hear us? Tom, can you hear us? Tom's smiling, but you're going to have to hear us. All right, you're mute at the moment, I think. All right, Tom, can you say something so we can hear you?
It's got a nice smile.
You're great. Tom, can you say something so we can hear you, please? All right. While we're waiting for that with Tom, I'm going to ask Ian to just introduce himself.
So hi everybody, I'm a facilitator, speaker and writer, and most of the work that I do is facilitation for the Kemp companies, and a lot of that has now become online. In fact, it's just ramped up incrementally. It's gone from kind of 4 years ago, sort of about 3 or 4 sessions in a year to last year I did 80 sessions, and this year it's scheduled to be 80 in the next 3 months, which is really interesting. So that's really taken off a lot. And the main program that I teach is called Leading in a Virtual Team, and it gives the opportunity to demonstrate all the virtual skills that are required for leading in a virtual team, and we actually practice them in the virtual classroom as well.
Great. Thanks, Ian. Tom, your video is off. Can you hear us yet? Can you speak? All right. Tom, if you can hear us, you're going to need to check if you're muted. All right, we have a message. Hi, team. It's Tom here. That's great. Sorry. So the thing that we do need with virtual work is just a little bit of patience. All right, Tom, you're going to need to unmute yourself on your side and see if you can speak. All right. Tom, if you can try, we'll get back to you in a moment. All right, I'm going to go back to Michelle and just ask the next question. What we want to know is what kinds of presentations can be done virtually. So Michelle, what kind of work do you do specifically online?
Charlotte, really I do a lot more simple work than Ian does. At the moment I coach virtually, so that's 90% of my work. That's using a camera in the same situation as we're doing now. I also facilitate Global Coaches Masterminds. That is an exclusive group of 8 people who come in via a Zoom link. From time to time we may share our presentations with each other. In September, we'll be launching a new coach training program, which I'm doing in conjunction with UCT and Get Smarter. And I'm not even sure of what platform we're going to be using at that stage when we do launch, but that's going to accommodate between 40 and 50 students online, and I'm going to be facilitating that from Santiago, and the majority of the students will be in South Africa.
Very good. And Ian, you explained a bit about yours, but maybe you want to explain kind of how you do the training?
So this main course that I give, the Leading in a Virtual Team, is done on a platform called Adobe Connect. There are many such platforms available, a lot more sophisticated than, say, Skype or Zoom, and there's multiple opportunities for people to interact. So we have 4 main ways that people can interact with me as a facilitator. They see me in video, but then in terms of interaction, they can put their hand up, put their hand down, say go faster, go slow, just look various indicators. There's a chat box where they chat. We can use microphones, so we can open microphones in turn. Our typical class is somewhere between about 12 and 16 people. And we also, by the way, use breakout rooms, so they go into breakout rooms and then have little discussions, and then come back and feedback. So just like you would in another scenario where you would have table discussions, we have breakout rooms. So we put them into groups of 3 or 4 and they go and do that. And then the other way that they interact is perhaps the most fun way, and that is on the actual screen. There's a slide. Typically we have slides as we're going through the training, and on that screen they can put check marks. So for example, I can show a list of things and which one of these are you most interested in, and they can put a check mark next to it, or they can scribble on the screen, or they can highlight things, or various forms of interaction on the actual slide. And some of them look like works of art in the end, and I always keep them afterwards and use them as a reference point. So those are the main ways we interact.
Great. And Tom and I had a conversation about this. He does keynote presentations virtually, so anything that he would do from stage, he's able to present to an audience in a different place. I just need to pause at this moment because if anybody's watching us from live streaming, and if you are, how's it? So that's South African for hello. But if you're looking at us, you're seeing Ian and I from the waist up, but anybody in the room here is wondering why Ian disappeared from the room just before we started and what on earth is going on below the waist. So Ian is going to have to explain that to us just for a moment.
So I don't have air conditioning at home, and when I'm training online in the summer, I'm typically in shorts and barefoot, and when I'm training online in the winter, I'm probably wearing tracksuit pants, but always a reasonable shirt. Because that's the piece that they see. Now, for some people that wouldn't work, it does work for me, and I just wanted to demonstrate that to everybody today.
Nobody's seen my knees in 2 decades. All right, the next question is, what makes doing virtual presentations attractive? And there's three audiences. One is the actual audience in the room. Why would we be interested in watching a virtual presentation? Why would an organizer be interested in a virtual presentation, and why might this be a good idea for a speaker or a trainer and a coach? And Michelle, we'll throw that back to you again. Michelle?
Hang on a second, Charlotte. I'm dealing with a bit of background noise. Okay, so what makes a virtual presentation? I don't know. Because I'm not presenting so much as I'm facilitating or working with. But certainly I would say energy. I would say that a lot of my clients are very excited when they connect with me online because they say, wow, it feels like you're in the same room. And I think that's super important for virtual facilitators, is to really come into it authentically with a lot of energy so that your energy can move right through the virtual space.
Okay. Tom, are you online with us yet? Not. Okay, so Ian, for you.
Hey guys, I'm here.
All right, Tom, very quick, just an introduction from yourself. What is it that you speak about virtually?
Hey guys, well first just a big warm welcome to all the delegates at PSA Southern Africa. How you guys doing out there? Awesome. Well, I wish I could join you guys live in person, but I'm live virtually, and that's just as great, which is the whole point of this panel, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Cool. So just a quick one about myself. I'm an international sales speaker and author of a couple of books on sales. Sales optimization is my topic. That's what I speak on. That's what I train on. That's what I live and breathe every day in my life.
Fantastic. Tom, our question at the moment is what makes virtual presentations attractive, either to the speaker or to the audience or to the organizer? So from your work, why is this an attractive option?
Well, it's super attractive because you don't have to worry about venue costs. So that's number one. So you don't have to worry about venue costs. You also don't have to worry about the logistics of trying to get a number of people in the same room at the same time. So a lot of the work that I do, I'll do the keynotes and the training live in person, but then we'll also follow it up with a series of webinars to kind of reinforce the learning from the live in person workshop.
Great. All right, I'm going to ask Ian if he's got anything to add.
I can talk for this on hours, so you have to stop me on this one, I think. So we actually deal with this in this program that I'm rolling out globally, and that is that they've found that there are many, many advantages of virtual work and even advantages of virtual teaming, because that's what we actually facilitate, and it's the same thing. So travel costs obviously is a massive one, but what they've actually found, for example, is that in brainstorming, virtual teams do a better job than face-to-face teams. Now that might be a surprise to you, but what we've seen is that people who are more introverted actually come out in the virtual environment in a way that they wouldn't face-to-face. People who dominate are very aware of it in the virtual environment, more so than they would be face-to-face. And we actually build that into the way we work. So there are many things that actually, and there's good research, and Harvard Business Review has written many articles, a lot of things, for example, the one on the virtual brainstorming being more effective. So there are a lot of advantages of doing things virtually over face-to-face. For the client, they are a global team and they want to be training people globally. So I train into Hungary, Russia, Netherlands, UK, Middle East, Africa. I've trained into India. I've trained all over the place simply from South Africa. And so they're an incredible advantage to be able to reach all of those people without a lot of additional costs.
Thank you, Ian. All right, now another question that we have and we wrestle with quite often, not only how do we market ourselves as speakers, we've already talked about how to market our podcast, but how do we market the fact that we're available or that we have some experience with virtual presentations? And I want to add just a little twist in there for our South African presenters on this panel. Why would a South African market themselves, or how could a South African market themselves to international audiences? Do we have any kind of benefit or anything that holds us back? Again, we'll start with Michelle.
Super. One thing everybody needs to know is that in my experience now, South Africans are hugely valued on the international scene. We have apparently sexy accents. We have a reputation for hard work and for being very smart. And we tend to have, when we're in South Africa, we tend to have this, we're South Africans on the bottom end of the planet here, and we're not able to compete globally, but that is not my experience. We are valued in the international scene. So I market a large part still back into South Africa, but also internationally, and I do that through social media, through storytelling and personal branding. And I learned some time ago to stop apologizing that I'm working virtually, because that seems to be another thing we do, is we go, I'm so sorry, I can't meet in person, I have to meet virtually. Now I don't apologize, now I say, this is so exciting, let's hop onto Skype, or let's hop onto Zoom. And so it simply is a way of working. If I put that out confidently, people are very excited to give it a try.
That's great, thank you. Tom, from your experience from Singapore, how do we market ourselves?
So we typically wouldn't market this separate from the overall solutions, right? So in our company, we say that we offer integrated selling solutions. And that includes everything from the live in-person 45-minute keynote to the 4-day workshop if needed, to train the trainer, to webinars, right, the online training. We also have an online program called SoCo Academy where people can go through that, and it's self-paced learning. So it's really trying to show your customers that you've got a whole wheel, a suite of services to help them overcome that problem. A webinar is just a modality, right? It's just a way of delivering that. So it's really around, do you want your team to perform better in such a space? Great. Here's how we can do it. So in our case, what's really useful is being in Asia, I travel to about 15 countries a year around the region. Now, sometimes I'll get everyone together for the regional sales kickoff, but then if they want me to work with, the Thai team or the Vietnamese team or in Hong Kong, it may be cost prohibitive for them to fly me to those places. So we can just do these webinars and be able to access every single person on that regional sales team at the same time. And if they can't make the call, well, of course we can record it. So our customers see tremendous value in that, and not sort of I'm sorry we have to do it this way. They're like, that's great.
Good insight, yeah?
I don't want to add a lot to that. I think that's been very well put. What I would want to add on a slightly different note, though, is as much as it's part of an offering, it's just a modality, it's just a medium, and it's just part of an offering, there are skills required. I guess if you're starting with Skype or that, you'll pick that up quite quickly, and it's quite simple. But the moment you're getting into something more complex, like doing full-blown training, I mean, the training I do is 8 hour-and-a-half sessions with the group of people. The first one is over 2 days, and then the other 2, the first 6 over 2 days, and the other 2 are sort of a follow-up session about 5 weeks later. Now, that platform, getting to know it, how to use it, let me give you one simple example. I was used to telling stories, and I love telling stories, and I tell long stories. In fact, I'm telling one now, aren't I? And what I heard when I was trained was a story may never be longer than 2 minutes. Another one I heard is you want people interacting with you at least every 3 or 4 minutes. And when I heard this, I was totally overwhelmed and intimidated. And now I've got it, and it's actually quite simple when you learn the tool. So I would suggest you need some upskilling to be specifically very good in this medium. It's still what you know already as a speaker or as a trainer or as a coach, but you probably want to upskill a little bit as well. And I think that makes you more marketable when you can share your experience and your knowledge and confidence in the platform, not just your confidence as a trainer or speaker.
Thank you. All right, so Ian has segued nicely into the next question, which was about the kind of techniques that we need to use. And I know when Ian came and joined us on the online session, we had kind of a pre-discussion about it. It was about that interaction. So Michelle, for yourself, what techniques do you use to maybe keep your audience engaged or to get your message across? What works for you in terms of the actual operating with somebody over online?
I thought about this question for quite a while at 5 o'clock this morning, Charlotte, and certainly I'm going to tap into Ian when I start the UCT training because I'm going to have a much bigger classroom. But right now, I think my biggest tool is rapport. Rapport, the ability to resonate with the person on the other side in a way that's so natural and so comfortable. I used the word earlier, energy. And it sounds like perhaps that's not a technique, but indeed it is. Is how do we immediately put people at ease despite the fact that we're miles away and a computer screen separates us?
Thank you. All right, and Tom?
Yeah, I think, Ian mentioned something and I'll just sort of expand a bit. I think engagement is critical on a webinar. At least when they're in a room, you can see when they're distracted and doing something else, right? But when you're on a webinar, you got pop-up things coming up, they're checking their email, they're on social, so you really have to keep their attention. So one way that I use to engage them is through polling, like tests, right? And that gets people involved. So rather than just make this theoretical, we're actually going to apply this right now. So I want everyone to pay attention, and I'm going to ask the audience a question. The question for the audience, and I just noticed people started paying more attention, all right? So the question for the audience is this. How many of you have experimented with some sort of virtual training in any capacity? Can we get a show of hands, please? Okay, and Ian or Charlotte, can you do a quick count, please? Hands up.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20.
20 out of?
50, Richard? Yeah.
20 out of 50.
Yeah.
Okay, so about a third of you. So congratulations to those of you who are doing it or have tried it. You have 5 points. So please write the number 5 down on a sheet of paper now. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. 2 more are coming. All of you who get 15 points, I'm going to send you a digital copy of both of my books.
All right. That's engagement.
All right, so that was question number 1. All right. So that's just an example of how you can engage a virtual audience.
Very good. All right. Are your second questions coming now, or are you going to spend them out? People are waiting. All right.
We got to keep their attention throughout this session.
Got to keep their attention. Okay, perfect. I'm learning. All right, I'm learning. Okay. The next question I want to go to is Michelle's already said, and Tom kind of reinforced that, is that we must not apologize for making this offering of virtual work, because it is actually a value. I want to have a discussion about how we monetize this. And I'm not even going to set it up. I'm just going to say, Michelle, how do you monetize this?
I charge, just like everyone else does. So just from a technical point of view, I have 2 product offerings. They each have a price attached to them. My clients pay me via PayPal prior to our engagement. I have no apology about charging. I charge as much as I do for virtual work as I do for face-to-face work. The skill set is no less required from me, nor is the time commitment. It's awesome that I don't have to travel, nor does my client, so that does make my pricing attractive. But yeah, that's how I work. I put a price tag on it.
Great. And Tom?
Yeah, so very similarly, I mean, this is a product just like any other. So I charge the same rate per hour for a webinar that I would typically for like a 1-day training. So I won't get into what those rates are, obviously, but I value my time, and what the customers are getting is exactly the same. There's really no difference in terms of the content, the interaction, the challenging questions, the debriefing, the takeaways, the assignments, the next action steps. That's all happening on that call. So the value is the same, so we charge. Now, with any other thing, is if I'm working with a big customer that has booked me for multiple training engagements, I might throw in 3 months of a 1-hour coaching session delivered virtually as a follow-up. I might just throw that in just to sweeten the pot, right? So you just have to, it's just a product like anything else. In the same way that I might offer, 6 months subscription to our online program, Silco Academy, to reinforce that. So it's kind of a judgment call depending on the project with that customer. Do I feel like it's something that I can actually add on after the sale, or use it as a way to actually close that sale? So it really is on a case-by-case basis, but the customer has to see that this product has tremendous value, and here's what it's worth, and here's what you're paying, or here's what I'm giving you, and here's the value of that.
So for what we do, the price per day works out pretty much exactly the same. The model of pricing is slightly different in that we typically will not train more than 3 sessions in a day, and a session is either an hour and a half or 2 hours. And then, but you add up 3 sessions to a day, that comes to pretty much the same rate that I would be getting for a face-to-face classroom. So it really is the same thing. It's the same. In fact, those hour and a half sessions are so intense that you do 3 of them in a day. That's 4.5 hours of actual live work. You finished. That is as much work as much draining as you would have. It is emotional, intellectual, physical, spiritual, the same kind of thing that you would have in a classroom.
Great answers. All right, thank you. All right, now my next question is along the lines of the kind of the technologies or the platforms that we use, and I'd like you just to kind of make some comments about that, and we can start again with Michelle.
For me, I'm all about simplicity. I want to make it as easy for me as it is for the client. So usually in a one-on-one situation, I use Skype, and I do that purely because most people already have Skype installed. Particularly when I'm working with leaders and C-suite people, I don't want to freak them out by dropping in with a new technology. So I use Skype. Zoom is a more stable platform for me, and so I use that for groups. So for my masterminds, I'm using Zoom. I have no idea what my online learning platform is going to be with UCT. I'm so excited to educate myself about that.
And Tom?
So we typically use GoToMeeting or WebEx. That seems to be a platform that a lot of our corporate customers are used to. So I'll do maybe I think Michelle and I do something slightly different. So with one-on-one coaching clients, and I have very few of them, but the one-on-one coaching clients, we'll use whatever platform works for them, whether it's GoToMeeting or whether it's Zoom or Skype, or even a Facebook video. We've done that, as well as WhatsApp video. So whatever works for the customer is really what you should focus on. And our experience with the corporate market is they're very comfortable and very familiar with WebEx and GoToMeeting. So that's typically what we would mention to the customer that would be the platform that we would use with them.
Yeah, much the same for me. Smaller environments, Skype for Business, Zoom. Larger environments, as I said, I use Adobe Connect is the main one at the moment. I was also trained in WebEx. WebEx, by the way, have 3 products. They have a webinar product, a training product, and a meeting product. So they have 3 different products. So there's specifically a training product that would be the useful one there. And then GoToMeeting I've used a little bit, but not as much. The one thing I would add, though, is that the audio and video is quite important, especially as you get into a larger audience. So I find, for example, as the laptop screens are getting thinner and thinner, the quality of the camera is not going up. It's one of the big criticisms of even the 40,000 Rand MacBook Pro, is that the camera is actually not great, and especially in low light. So I invested in a better webcam. And then, because sometimes there's outside noise, I actually use a single ear headset, boom headset, also USB, so it's very reliable. I've got a Logitech one, I've actually got it here if anybody wants to see it. And it eliminates a lot of that sort of hollow noise. And when I've had dogs barking and people can't hear it, and I've asked them, because the microphone is so close to the mouth.
Great. All right. Tom, are you going to want to ask a second question?
Yeah, so just real quick, I just want to expand on, or just elaborate on what Ian said. So same thing. So when I'm doing a session with a customer, I'm using Bluetooth headset with the microphone, so I can hear very clearly. There's no ambient noise. That's all filtered out, no problem. So I'm glad we don't have any issues here. And you also have to be able to adapt as well. So I don't know if any of you noticed, when I first came on the call, I felt as though my lighting was poor.
Yeah.
So I was able to make a quick shift, paused my camera, and then got a mic going on, a light going on, which is over here, which is, you know, illuminating me a little bit better than just the natural lighting. So that's important. People have to feel like they can see you, they need to be able to hear you, and to engage people, you need to be a little bit more animated, which is why I'm moving around a lot.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so here's my second question.
Yes?
Thanks for the reminder, Charlotte. Okay, everyone pay attention to the group now. Okay, and can everyone still hear me? If you can, just say yes.
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 Awesome, okay, cool. I wish I was there, you guys. Oh my God, okay. Question number 2 is this. How many of you are now thinking about experimenting with virtual training? Show of hands. Okay.
Nice.
How many we got there? How many we got?
I think maybe 2 people aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so about 2 or 3 people I think are doing their own, have their own thing, but everybody else is really thinking about it now.
Okay, cool. So for those of you who are thinking about it, or maybe you're already doing it, 5 more points. So now you've got 10.
But did they only reply because they want the 5 more points?
Well, now we need to hold them accountable because they put their hand up. So I hope you guys took a photo of them.
Tom,
This is being recorded, by the way.
it has been recorded. It's also been live streamed with a 360-degree camera, so the entire audience is being filmed right now. So we'll go back and check on
We'll
it. We'll do an audit.
So
Yeah,
you're being held accountable.
All right. So we'll check. We'll take back your prize if you don't. All right. We have an opportunity now to actually ask for questions from the audience. So what questions do you have for our panel? Chris,
Just a quick question. I find this.
just hold on a second. I'll give you the mic.
Let's get Chris on stage.
Guys, thanks very much for all logging in. I find this whole new world pretty fascinating, and I think it's something that I think a lot of people here that haven't dabbled in and probably haven't dabbled in for the same reason as me. It's something that is fearful, it's new, and it's about leaving your comfort zone and trying something new. And in order to be better speakers going forward, I think all of us have to get into this space, whether we want to or not. So this is fascinating. I think the one question that I came up with is, if you are working with a presentation, which I do a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people here do, is it quite easy to see the presentation on another screen, or how do you integrate it into your session? So it's visually easy to see it, because I think what I've noticed in these kind of scenarios is that the screen that you have showing slides is often, if it's on the same platform as you are, is very dim, or it's very difficult for your audience to see.
All right, good question. Tom, do you want to start with that one?
Let's start with Michelle, please, if that's all right.
All right, Michelle.
Super, great question, thank you. I want to clarify that I'm not so much doing presentations as a speaker. When I facilitate the Global Coaches Masterminds, what happens in that group is that every second week somebody arrives with a goal, and they have created a presentation of that goal. They are able to share that screen. We're 8 people on a call. The presentation goes up. In my experience, the quality is terrific. And the little screenshots of each of us who are looking at that presentation simply slides to the right-hand side of our screen. So we see the presentation and we see each other.
Very good. Tom, you ready to respond, or should we ask Ian?
Yeah, go for Ian.
Yeah.
Okay, so the more sophisticated platforms do allow for this better. So Zoom starts to use it quite well. Skype is very messy with sharing screens. Zoom gives you great facility for that. But when you get to the proper training and presentation platforms, the ones that have been mentioned, you will have a slide up, you will have a chat box, you will be able to use video where appropriate. So obviously 1 to very large audiences, as in individuals, hundreds of them all over the world, you're not going to see them. You won't even have their microphones open typically for something like that, but you'll use chat box as the main feedback mechanism. But if it's to a smaller audience, you can use microphones as well, and but you'll have a slide and you will actually talk to that slide. And as I say, we can even interact with that slide. We can get people to put marks on the slide or whatever, and you can control that it doesn't get out of hand. So it's actually incredibly flexible. And this comes back to the upskilling. You mentioned it's intimidating, and it is, and it was for me too. But get upskilled and get the confidence and make sure that your upskilling includes some practical work so that you can actually be more comfortable with the platform.
Cool. Yeah, that's great advice from Ian and Michelle. So I'm also going to take it from kind of theory to practice. I think that's super important. So rather than tell you how a presentation might look, let's just do it. So I'm just going to share my screen right now. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes. Almost. There we go.
Yeah, we go.
Yes.
Okay. And now?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you all see this master slide, Sales Leadership Masterclass?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so this is just an example of a slide deck that I used for a Sales Leadership Masterclass in Manila a couple weeks back. I can just as easily deliver this online. Hey folks, here's what we're going to cover today: the 7 pillars of SoCo selling. Let's jump right into the 7 power selling assets. These are the foundation of success. But first, what's an asset? Okay, see what I'm saying? So we could go through this whole thing virtually and quite seamlessly. Super easy to flip back and forth, and I'm back, right?
Very good. Thank you. I want to say.
Did that demo work? Could everyone see that?
Yes, perfectly.
I want to add 2 things. First of all, if you're playing the buzzword bingo on the table, I think upskilling might have been a word. All right. I want to say there's a lot of techniques that we as speakers need to learn, and sometimes it can be intimidating. You do not want to practice these skills for the first time with a paying client. That's not fair. It's not professional. So you want to work within the groups. So we have an online meeting, and I've been running it for a while. It's had a couple of false starts in the beginning. Then we kind of regular, 3 times in 3 months, but they could all be in the last week. But I've been doing it for about a year. Before Ian came, he was on my radio show first, and then he came onto the online meeting. And he taught me a whole lot of things before we were on the online meeting. And then during the online meeting, we tried some things for the first time. So I'd been kind of operating it at a small level until I'd learned more, but I had to have that practice. You have to start somewhere. It's not going to be good. Now here's another technique. We have a women's speakers mastermind in Cape Town. There's 8 of us, and we were meeting the other day actually with Joni when she was in town. We were talking about various things, and we realized that there are these skills that we're afraid to try. So we decided on the spot that instead of just having our regular mastermind meetings, we're going to have a play date. Where we get together and we actually try the technologies that we're talking about. And the next one is actually Facebook Live. We've all kind of played around with Facebook Live, but none of us feel confident to use it in our marketing or with our clients. So we're going to spend our whole session playing around with Facebook Live so that we can learn it. So you have colleagues, you can start mastermind groups, or you can just get a bunch of people together in a room and try this out. Or, what am I saying? In different rooms and try this out. But let's use this. It really is going to be powerful. All right, another question from the audience.
I'm just curious.
Hold on a second.
Hello, Ian. My neighbor. I'm just curious to ask, what happens if you do have, as a facilitator, a trainer, or a speaker, technology glitches? And now your students are on a line hanging there. Do you come back? What is the proper etiquette to approach that if that was to happen?
That is a great question. So shall I take that one first, or do you want to go through the circle? Well, actually, I'd love to hear from. Let's start again from Chile, because I think it's probably happened a lot there too. Michelle?
Yes, technical issues happen regularly. And that's why the skill of rapport is so important. The connection you have with your client is what helps me overcome the technical glitches. So I will make a joke about satellites bumping each other in the air, and that knocks the call out. I have my clients' WhatsApp numbers always. So if I am thrown out, I immediately send a message via WhatsApp to say, I'm out, give us a minute, let's reconnect. Very often the client, sadly to say, but particularly in South Africa, sometimes the clients have audio difficulties with their technology, and I have developed the muscle of patience. It's super important to have patience working in the virtual space. But in my experience, rapport beats all. If I have a good relationship with a client, we move through the technical glitches. We understand it's part of the landscape.
Tom?
Yeah, I would agree 110% with Michelle. Technical glitches are going to happen anywhere, right? So you could be delivering a session live and the lights go out, or the screen goes blank, or you come to a session like, oh my god, I didn't know it was HDMI and I don't have a thing. Now, fortunately, for me, I always come prepared with my speaker kit that's got all these gadgets inside, so that doesn't happen. So preparedness is super important. But I did have a situation a couple of months ago where I was delivering a live webinar for a customer, and they couldn't hear me. I could hear them, but they couldn't hear me, and that happened. It was the first time that this happened, and it turned out I didn't turn on my audio. Like, rookie mistake. I was ready to go, I had my slides, the content, I was pumped, I was chatting away, getting them engaged, but they couldn't hear me. So what I did was I just said, hey guys, let's reschedule. I just set up another one right away. We had about half those people hop back on right away because I fixed the audio glitch. But I felt like it wasn't delivering value to those that couldn't, and it really stalled things for about 15 minutes or so for an hour-long session. So I just messaged the client and I said, hey, you know what? I want to throw in a bonus webinar at no charge. And they were cool with that, so that's fine. But here's it, so I like what Michelle said, if you've got good rapport with the customer, they will forgive you for these glitches because they happen, but you need to have a contingency plan. What can you throw them? Can you maybe send them a video to watch in the meantime, or what, just to keep them occupied and deliver value? But a super important thing that I would recommend everybody do, don't do it alone, especially for the first few. Have someone on your team handling the technical stuff while you're delivering the content. So have someone messing around with slides. Have someone answering phone calls, emails, or chat messages. Oh, I can't get on, my audio's not working. That shouldn't be something that you as the trainer, as a facilitator, should be troubleshooting. So if you can get someone on your team, that would be super, super helpful to assist you.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go.